Han Li opened his mouth to release a burst of azure light, which vanished into the green gourd, and a layer of green light instantly appeared over its surface. The green light was filled with countless tiny runes that were flowing like water while spreading outward, giving off an impression of abundant vitality. A burst of faint law power fluctuations was also emanating from the gentle green light, and a hint of elation appeared in Han Li's eyes. It seemed that a faint spiritual connection had been formed between himself and the green gourd. Han Li slashed a fingernail over one of his fingertips, drawing a drop of blood essence that dripped onto the green gourd, but instead of fusing into the gourd, the drop of blood merely slid down its side. However, not only was Han Li not disappointed to see this, his eyes lit up instead as he nodded to himself, confirming that this was indeed a profound heavenly treasure. Even though he once possessed the profound heavenly spirit/sword, he didn't actually know very much about profound heavenly treasures. And only after arriving in the immortal realm did he gradually begin to find some records and scriptures pertaining to profound heavenly treasures. These treasures were born from heaven and earth, and they were different from normal immortal treasures. One important property of profound heavenly treasures was that they couldn't be refined using blood essence. Instead, they could only be slowly refined over time in one's body using their immortal spiritual power. And this refinement process was going to be a very lengthy one. In the case of the profound heavenly spirit/sword, it had been nurtured in Han Li's body for countless years before he was slowly able to wield it. Furthermore, if the owner of a profound heavenly treasure were killed and the treasure fell into the hands of someone else, then that person would be able to wield it right away. In contrast, in a normal immortal treasure, the mark of the previous owner had to be removed first before it could be refined again. And even then, there was a chance that the new owner would never be able to tap into the treasure's full power. Han Li took a deep breath, then pressed the green gourd against his forehead, and he was only just barely able to force a wisp of his spiritual sense into it, upon which a surprised look instantly appeared on his face. Inside the gourd was a large space that was filled with green light, which was swirling to form an enormous green vortex. The space deeper within the gourd was rather blurry and indistinct, but there seemed to be something else in there. Hovering at the center of the green vortex was none other than Han Li's azure bamboo cloud swarm sword, which Qiu Ling had captured earlier, and Han Li was quite relieved to see this. The azure bamboo cloud swarm swords were his bonded immortal treasures, and if he were to lose one, then that would spell a lot of trouble. Instead of immediately recovering his flying sword, he continued to extend his spiritual sense deeper into the internal space of the gourd. However, his spiritual sense had only just reached the edge of the vortex when it was stopped in its tracks by a burst of invisible force. Han Li was rather taken aback by this, and he tried to force his way through, but to no avail. It was clear that this invisible barrier couldn't be bypassed using his spiritual sense alone, and he would have to find some other way to break through it. Perhaps this would only be achievable once he refined the gourd to the point that he was able to truly control it. Of course, it was naturally the case that the more profound this gourd was, the more it would benefit him. With that in mind, he withdrew his spiritual sense and wrapped it around the azure bamboo cloud swarm sword before tugging on it, and the sword immediately flew out of the opening of the gourd. The azure light emanating from the azure bamboo cloud swarm sword had dimmed a little compared with before, and Han Li's brows furrowed slightly upon seeing this. However, as he inspected the flying sword's internal condition with his spiritual sense, he discovered that the dimming of the light that it was emanating wasn't due to a reduction in the spiritual power that it contained. Instead, not only had the enormous spiritual power within the flying sword not diminished at all, the previously rather chaotic and erratic spiritual power had become far purer and more condensed. A hint of surprise and elation appeared in Han Li's eyes, and he certainly wasn't expecting the gourd to have such an effect. After a brief moment of contemplation, he swept a sleeve through the air to release a burst of azure light that vanished into the green gourd, and a burst of green light emerged from the opening of the gourd to latch onto the flying sword and draw it into the gourd again. After that, Han Li swept his sleeve through the air once again to summon a miniature 3-story pavilion, and it was none other than that immortal treasure that he had found earlier in the Light Frost Palace. The miniature pagoda was sucked into the green gourd as well, and Han Li was eager to test out the gourd's abilities. After stowing the gourd away, Han Li turned his attention back to the vast collection of items on the ground, and his brows furrowed slightly in contemplation. There were far too many things laid out on the ground, and he didn't recognize most of them. So it would take at least a day or two for him to sort through them. After remaining silent for a while longer, Han Li called out to Mo Guang, who immediately emerged from his shadow. "Can I help you with something, fellow Taoist Han?" "Hold on a second. Your cultivation base has advanced yet again. How is this possible? You are truly an unmatched prodigy, fellow Taoist," Mo Guang exclaimed upon sensing Han Li's aura. It then took a moment to inspect its surroundings, and the surprise on its face became even more pronounced at the sight of Jin Tong and the vast array of items on the ground. Han Li paid no heed to Mo Guang as he swept his sleeve through the air to summon Taoist Xie. Mo Guang's expression changed slightly once again upon sensing Taoist Xie's aura, and it suddenly felt like everyone was leaving it behind. Even though it had already returned to its former cultivation base, it was still only at the mid-true immortal stage, while Taoist Xie had become a golden immortal stage immortal puppet, and Jin Tong had also reached the golden immortal stage. On top of that, Han Li had gone even further beyond them, reaching the mid-golden immortal stage. "I just defeated a golden immortal just now, and these are her possessions. There's quite a lot of stuff here, most of which I don't recognize, so I need your help to identify all of this stuff," Han Li said. "I see. That's not a problem. I may be lacking in cultivation base, but I saw many things during my time with Ma Liang," Mo Guang said with a smile. Taoist Xie also nodded in response, then sat down beside Han Li. "Please help me organize these items and record their uses in a jade slip so I can identify them easily in the future," Han Li instructed as he pulled out a pair of blank jade slips before handing them to Mo Guang and Taoist Xie. Right at this moment, Jin Tong made her way over to Han Li, having awakened from her cultivation, and her eyes were sparkling as she exclaimed, "Whoa, there's so much good stuff here. Long time no see, gold-devouring immortal. With fellow Taoist Han on your side, I'm sure you'll become a Tao ancestor and reign supreme over the immortal realm someday." Mo Guang greeted as it cupped its fist in a salute. "Get away from me, you shady-looking bastard. I can't stand the sight of you." Jin Tong snapped as her brows furrowed slightly. The smile on Mo Guang's face instantly stiffened upon hearing this. "Don't be so rude, Jin Tong. All of us ascended to the immortal realm together, and it's very fortunate that we've all been reunited here," Han Li scolded in a stern voice. Jin Tong took another disdainful glance at Mo Guang, but didn't say anything further, and her attention was instantly drawn back to the vast array of treasures on the ground. "We've reeled in a massive haul, Jin Tong," Han Li said with a smile. However, Jin Tong seemed to be completely unable to hear him, and her cheeks bulged as she opened her mouth to release a burst of golden light, sweeping up a set of 7 or 8 golden flying daggers nearby. Each dagger was giving off formidable spiritual power fluctuations, clearly indicating that they were spirit treasures of a very high caliber. The burst of golden light carried the flying daggers into Jin Tong's mouth, and she began to chomp on them with glee, chewing the daggers into pieces before swallowing them. Both Taoist Xie and Mo Guang were very much taken aback to see this, while Han Li could only give a wry smile. All of a sudden, a burst of golden light emerged over Jin Tong's body before flowing into her arms to further reinforce them, and her aura was also elevated slightly as a result. Immediately thereafter, she began looking around once again, and her gaze quickly settled on a heavy silver hammer as she opened her mouth to release another burst of golden light. The hammer was drawn into her arms, and she cradled it to her chest as she took a bite out of the treasure. A corner of the hammer was bitten off, and she began humming a blissful tune as she crunched on the piece of hammer like a chunk of crispy radish. The silver hammer wasn't far off from becoming an immortal treasure, and Han Li raised a hand to stop Jin Tong, but lowered it with a resigned expression in the end. He then turned to Taoist Xie and Mo Guang and tossed a pair of storage tools at them as he instructed. Organize everything and stow them away. The two of them caught the storage tools, then exchanged a glance before quickly commencing their work. Meanwhile, Han Li swept his gaze over the surrounding area, and something quickly caught his attention. He swept a sleeve through the air in a covert fashion, sneakily drawing a purple saber, a golden net, and a white archway to himself. And he was just about to stow them away when a little hand shot out from beside him like lightning to grab onto the purple saber. "This is mine!" Jintong yelled as she looked up at Han Li. A wry smile appeared on Han Li's face, and he stowed the golden net and the white archway away as he negotiated. "There are so many other treasures here, and you can eat as many of them as you like. But these three are immortal treasures. Even if you eat them now, you may not be able to digest them, so I'll give them to you next time, all right?" "You're so stingy," Jintong complained, displaying no intention of releasing the purple saber. "All right, then, how about this? You give this saber to me, and I promise you that I'll kill a golden immortal for you and feed you their nascent soul," Han Li proposed. This time, Jintong didn't even bother to reply as she opened her mouth and bit down toward the purple saber.